They didn't have a say in what I was going to do with their future and their education. If they still want to go to school or university, college, they can. But for now, they go by my rules whilst they live under my house.
Today, we have an absolute genius TikTok mom who has decided for her 8-year-old and 9-year-old kids that they are not going to school. This is not one of those situations of maybe a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old who has built up an online business or really just doesn't see, finishing their education as something important in their career, which, I have my thoughts on that as well, which I can talk about later. This is a situation of a TikTok mom who is making the decision for her children who barely even have a frontal lobe intact, that the correct decision for them, their future, is going to be not going to school. And this isn't even just not going to college. This is literally not going to elementary school, where you learn basic social skills, basic reading, math, the fundamentals of what is needed to succeed, right? What is necessary in society. There's a lot of debate if you really need to go to college, and really case by case there. But I think that there's almost no debate that this here is necessary.
Bug bunny!
I think you already know where this video is gonna go. I mean, off the rip, the mom is unironically naming her child Bad Bunny. And look, you can love the music artist. You can love Bad Bunny if you want to. But unironically naming your kid after some, celebrity, I don't know, man. I mean, feel free to name your kid whatever you want. If you want to pull an Elon Musk and name your kid in frickin' binary code if you want to. I know it's not binary, but some crazy alien space name if you want. It's a free country. Go for it if you really want to. But you already know that this parenting is going to be pretty questionable if we're starting the video off by naming your kid Bad Bunny, dude.
Right, breakfast. They're only 12 months apart, but they're like chalk and cheese. Hi, I'm Cassie Ann. I work in the health and aesthetic industry and also influencing on social media. So I've got 2 babies, Bug and Bunny. They're 8 and 9. And then I have a new one on the way who is called Johnny Blue.
I mean, at least the name isn't Bonnie Blue. Johnny Blue beats Bonnie Blue by a mile here. But in all seriousness, I just don't understand the obsession with celebrities, or in this case, celebrities with quotation marks around them, when they're naming their kids just really kind of weird names. I've actually found this to also be true with super rich people as well. They just have the weirdest names imaginable to name their kids. It's almost like at that point, you need everything to be some sort of status symbol. So you're thinking about, okay, John, Derek, Bartholomew. No. I've heard these names a million times before. There's no status LARPing I can get from this. But you know what could be status LARPing? You're correct. A crazy out there name. When I go to the country club or the media pulls me over and interviews me. I mean, they're basically just clip farming. I mean, you're unironically spawn camping your kid with one of the words. I guess Bunny is... it's just not great. And okay, if you have a name and you're watching this and it's pretty out there, this isn't meant to be digging on you. I mean, you can really rock a name like that if you're really like that. But I know if my name was I don't know, Flying Tiger, Shallow Pond, Jack Black, Skibby Toilet, I'm just not the type. I don't know if anyone could pull that off, but I'm especially just not the type who's gonna be able to pull that off.
How's an average day for you now compared to when the girls were in school?
So normally we'd get up and it'd be a rush all morning trying to get them dressed and waking them up, going to school. We don't really have a hectic morning as such.
I honestly feel like what she's describing here is fundamentally a good thing for childhood development. I know that if I was a kid and I had the opportunity to sleep in every single day, I could get up whenever I wanted to, it was super flexible. I would have absolutely done that as a kid, but as a parent, I wouldn't allow that for my kids. I would have them, summer breaks one thing, but one of the things about school and the rigid schedule here is you're able to really build these routines and the ability to, you have to go to bed on time. Like, it's even something where I'll probably enforce a bedtime, but if my kid's really staying up, and especially if they're a little bit older, I might let them do it so that they can learn the consequences of staying up late and what that happens, like when you wake up in the morning. I mean, sometimes I got to remind myself of that during the day now. I really think that, it's so much nicer and more casual. I actually think that's fairly like a pretty I think that's a bad thing. I think, if you're older and later in life and you've had years and years and years and years of having to get up and not a lot of sleep, you have that context and that perspective to understand that it's a blessing. But I think as a kid, you're only going to teach your kid to not know how to really self-regulate and set rules and have a schedule and get things done.
I pulled the girls out of school about 4 or 5 months ago now. I already knew they weren't going to stay in education after year 6, but the way that the schooling system is, I removed them beforehand. The main reasons were I don't like what's being taught in school.
And I can understand the argument that some people have for homeschooling, and in certain situations, I can understand that. But if we're taking this case specifically, I really, and as we'll watch this video together, you'll realize that it's just because she doesn't see the point of math and science and reading. I'm just like, dude, what? But I think one of the most overlooked consequences of pulling your kids out of school really early is the socialization that you get from school, right? I mean, part of schooling for sure is the actual education, what you learn. But I mean, people talk about this, like, when am I going to do algebra? When am I going to need to recite these history facts? The point of going to school is not to actually retain them. The point of learning those things is to learn the discipline to perform on these tests. It's not the actual knowledge. It's also it's the process of learning. It's the process of being able to have logical thinking, memorization, fact recall, constructing an argument with fact recall. But the other major point of going to school is the socialization, being around, and some people have special needs around that, and I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about someone without any special needs in the kind of socialization category. It's very beneficial, especially as your brain, when you're younger, your brain is so plastic, and it needs to develop, right? And part of that developing, if not a majority of it, is through socialization. So you can, in theory, learn all these different things on your own, but a big part of that is learning it in these groups, right? When you have group projects, when you have to go in front of the class, when you're making friends or struggling to make friends, all those experiences, right? The good and the negative. I mean, mine is bullying, like that is a problem, and it does leave long-term psychological impacts on people affected. But minus that, everything is so important for development and succeeding in society long-term.
I believe a child learns more from freedom on the outside of school rather than sitting in a classroom for 6 to 8 hours. The girls, they didn't have a say in what I was going to do with their future and their education. If they still want to go to school or university, college, they can. But for now, they go by my rules whilst they live under my house.
So as you can see, this isn't like some specific teaching that goes against principles or something. This is really just I don't understand the point of learning math or history or English. Most of the learning happens outside of the classroom. I mean, there's a lot of learning that happens outside of the classroom. Don't get me wrong. I can understand that point in isolation, but also so much learning happens inside the classroom. And the point, some especially like kindergarten through 5th grade, there's a lot of fundamentals, especially in like reading, grammar, basic arithmetic, basic reasoning, basic history. I especially think in the earlier years, it is quite a bit about the actual material that you're learning. But even in the slightly later years, I said this before, but it's not about the actual material. It's not about the memory, the fact recall. I mean, everyone knows that when you graduate, like a year or two later, if it's like, hey, when did Alexander Hamilton die? It's like you had to memorize that exact date for a history test. No one really remembers it, right? And that's fine. The point wasn't that you had that store of information. The point was the ability to learn memory recall. The point was the ability to learn how to structure your time so that you can work on having this fact recall and studying, and then perform well on this exam. The point mostly isn't actually the material, and that's okay, right? I mean, I think having a little bit, maybe one class that's like real life or something like that, where you have to learn the fundamentals of taxes and investing and compound interest and how to work the corporate ladder and job internships and, societal rules and kind of like socialization and everything. Like, I do think that would be a cool class to add. But you have to understand that the point isn't just the actual information. And then the final thing she says here, which is actually pretty frustrating, is as long as they're under my roof, then they're going to go by my rules. I understand that I understand that as like a freedom thing, but also there's a reason why kids are encouraged to be in school. If not, it's really hard to take them out because it is so important for childhood development. It's important for your reasoning, right? And they can go to college after if they want to. You really think that they'd be prepared to go to college, right? At this point, you're making a decision for them. And, a lot of people will say, you're staying in school as long as you're under my roof. So I get that she's doing the Uno reverse. And I guess she's in her right to do it. But it's really something where there's a reason why it's basically required for kids to go through middle, like lower grades and high school. There's a reason why that's a requirement, right? There's so many factors in society that helps you with. I mean, you saying your kids can choose to go to college, if you say that you can't go through this school program, you're basically saying you can't go to college. It just won't work.
Is there anything you miss about school?
I miss my friends at school.
What do you miss about school?
Like,
You don't miss nothing about school? Nothing at all?
no, because I can text my friends.
So what's your favourite thing about not going to school? Can't be just your phone, because you're on a phone ban at the minute.
It's actually quite sad here because you can see the first girl saying like, I miss my friends, because a big part of school is the socialization aspect. Even if you're in the classroom and even when you're in class and you're not necessarily talking to your friends, one of the biggest parts here is not just, it's being in the same room with them. It's that kind of collective experience. Because also, as they continue to grow up, there's going to be, and with the people that, the other girl said, I can text them, right? A big part of life and bonding with other people are shared experiences. When you and this one person have this really bad t-shirt together, one of the big connecting points is bonding over that shared experience. High school football games, right? Clubs that happen at the school, the prom, sports that you have to do there, having really, as I said, really bad teachers together, group projects. And the problem is, as time goes on, their relationships are likely going to weaken with a lot of their friends because their other friends are having all these shared unique experiences together, and these kids are going to be drastically different. And look, there's nothing wrong with being an outsider. There's nothing wrong with kind of doing your own strides and finding your own friends, right? That's something that, really does speak to my life, but it was really helpful for me to get my foundation of friends from these shared experiences. It is possible to have friends outside of school, obviously, but it's also harder to have a base where you don't have that kind of continuous shared experience. I mean, think about some of your best friends, especially from when you're younger. Probably a lot of it was based on all the time you spent together. And sure, they can find like on Discord, I guess, or people online. And a lot of people have some of their best friends, if they can't connect with people at school, on Discord, online. But there is something to say that like, if you're setting someone up for success, putting them through the school system and saying you're probably going to meet your friends here is likely the best bet. And there's going to be people in the comments saying like, well, I have all my best friends online, and sure, that's fine, and that's great, but this is an edge case. The average person is going to have likely better success meeting people in these shared environments, and on Discord and playing games, that is a shared environment. School is just it's a massive shared environment where so many other people are forced to do it with you. You're spending countless hours. It is like the number one shared environment because of how many people are there, how long they're forced to be there and the hours you spend.
On a Monday, the children have tutoring and education, and then every single day, set days that I do things. I work my own hours and they kind of work around me. So when I'm not working, we have education and then playtime. They'll do cooking, they'll do cleaning, and they'll learn about being domestic as well as an education at home.
I mean, if you listen here carefully, she's basically saying, I'm doing my own work and my kids kind of come around when I do that. We have some time set aside for education, some time for like cooking together. You know, at school, there's like an 8 hours block every single day, well, minus like lunch and recess and free blocks, but like there is basically a 6 to 8 hour block that is dedicated towards education and learning in that process. There's no way from the schedule that she outlined that they're getting even 10% of that time. I mean, it seems like a few hours here or there, a tutor might come in. There's a reason why you spend so much time in school, because those kind of foundation, it's your foundation for the way that you approach the world, right? And this is sometimes the problem with homeschooling, which I think can be done correctly. And I think in some cases it does make sense. But quite often, you know, it's almost too lax, right? It's almost too unregulated. And look, there's some cases. I saw someone on Twitter a couple days ago, the story of this girl who was like a math genius who was homeschooled and finished, you know, calculus super early and was able to really focus in on that. And I think for like, if you're more in the savant category or you have a really specialized skill, I can understand that. But I mean, unless you disagree, I feel like every indicator is pointing towards that's not the case here. That's not the situation that we're watching right now.
What else do you like about being at home rather than school?
Because we don't have to.
Don't have to what?
Work. Do maths or do English or do science.
And what do you learn at home that you don't learn there?
Clean up.
I do co-parent with the children's dad. The girls' dad is fine with my decision. I think that pulling the girls out, especially their background being travellers, they do come out of education early anyway, so it was gonna happen within time. It was just the fact that I pulled them out earlier.
This just gets progressively worse and worse. Like, this is just accelerating down just the worst path possible. I mean, this is just getting to a point where two big things. One, what do you learn? Like, what is your favorite thing? I don't have to learn. That's essentially what she said. I don't have to learn math. I don't have to learn English. I don't have to learn reading or spelling or writing. It's like, oh, what are they learning in their learning blocks? Is it like how to become a YouTuber? Is it like, I don't know, like a Twitch University or something? Like Streamer U, like, dude. And yeah, I mean, yeah, if I was a kid, I'd be like, dude, I don't have to do these things I don't like doing. Sometimes in life, like the most important things are the things you don't enjoy doing, the things that give you the most value, especially over time. And like value to you, not like even societal value, sure, because you have these skills, but value to you as an individual, you know, are doing the things that don't come easy, that aren't immediately rewarding. So much in life that is the most rewarding is not rewarding at once. It's not rewarding immediately after the action or during the action before. Your dopamine doesn't fire off when you're studying for a history exam, right? But it's that foundation and that I mean, not only are they probably missing out on a lot of fundamental like things, like they're going to go like later in life, they're going to try to read something and they're just not going to be able to do it, which is challenging, right? There's a literacy rate problem, like even in the United States. And I feel bad because it's just, you know, those kids were not educated correctly or didn't get the needs, the special help that they needed, right? And they are just going to have a significantly harder time navigating the world, right? It's not their fault most of the time as well. In fact, if they're a kid, it's never their fault, right? It's the obligation and duty of the parent and the community and the government to step up. And the second thing here, the mom says that they're travelers, that's their job. What? What does that even mean? You're deciding for your kids that their job is to travel around? Are we serious? I mean, there's nothing wrong with traveling. I think that you can learn so much and you can get such great life perspective from traveling. But what are we even talking about? And I also think it's funny how, like, she said, oh yeah, the dad totally agrees with this. He's totally cool with it. How about we get an interview of the dad, like separate cameras, separate room, them not in the same room together. Because I think it's a little suspicious that she just so offhandedly says, oh yeah, no, he's cool with it, don't worry about it.
After chores, the girls come up, they get their outfits, they're always matching, they get their outfits, they do the hair, do the skincare. They know about designer, they've known about it for a very, very long time.
This is Chanel, this is Louis Vuitton, Rolex, Tom Ford, Dior.
So I like the girls to have nice things purely because, one, I've got it myself and I know what it feels like to have nice things. And then two, if they've got it from young, they can't be bribed with when they're older or given gifts and feel like it's everything to them.
I feel like the more this mom explains herself, the worse she looks. I mean, what is this line of reasoning? Also, it seems like their education is getting clothes and doing their skincare, hair, and makeup. Like, I honestly feel like these two kids, you can also tell that, like, some of them are kind of like, oh, it's so fun not going to school, but you can also tell that they're like, I miss my friends. And they also aren't old enough to have the perspective of why school was so important. And I honestly think that there's going to be a good chance that whether they admit it or not publicly, that internally, or at least subconsciously, they're going to get to a point later in life where they're going to look back and be like, I really missed out. Because the truth is, like, day to day, like, yeah, school was a grind. It was hard. It was annoying, right? But I look back at that, I'm like, those were great times. And those were great times not because they were always fun, right? Those were great times because of the time I spent with my friends, because of the hard things I had to do, because of how rewarding it was after working hard and things started to work. And I got that reward that way. And also this kind of line of reasoning of like giving your kids, I've never been for like, oh, you should just give your kids the nicest things possible. Well, I have them and it feels good when I have it. It's just really, I think, and look, I'm not a parent, so I'm going to say this on my high horse, but I'm going to say it anyways. The reason in theory why, if you're a fan of these kind of really expensive items, I mean, really the reason is for like social status signaling. I mean, that is essentially what those items are. I mean, if you break it down to like biological terms, you're social status signaling. That is just what it is. Because there's nothing inherently better about a lot of these items. There might be some marketed like, oh, it's very nice, it's going to feel good, it'll last longer. But let's be real. The main reason why you buy it is the social status signaling, which I'm not necessarily going to say it's the dumbest thing ever. There is biological reasons why we're wired to care a bit about that. I also think it looks a little bit corny if someone says decked out in like Gucci. I'm just like, dude, come on, bro. Like, also, no rich people actually, if you're really rich, you're probably not doing that. Like, if you're actually rich, like, I know, I've seen and I know a lot of actually rich people, and dude, I'm telling you, that's not how you farm status. You do it in different ways. By your business, sometimes your house, but in a tasteful way. In your connections, in the events you go to. There's a tasteful way and a non-tasteful way. But even beyond that, it doesn't matter, because these kids aren't going to get the joy from these designer goods, right? Part of the reason is because it's so much of enjoyment and fulfillment is like leveling. You start with this and then you get that dopamine release from improvement, right? I actually, I went to a high school where I went to school with a bunch of kids from like extremely rich families, like somewhere in the billionaire type rich. And the ones that were raised really well and were great people and that were happy most of the time were the ones that weren't raised like this. And the ones that were raised, in my opinion, a little bit more haphazardly like this, they really struggled to get enjoyment from almost anything. A lot of them went to bad routes, you know what I mean? And that's just because you don't get any enjoyment from your baseline. And that means if they get anything other than the most expensive, best thing, they're going to feel worse. So now there's nothing that they can buy that's like, this is nice, this is a release. This is their baseline going into life.
I'm a millionaire businesswoman and I dropped out of school at 14. I do believe me coming out of school early has had a big influence on the children. Reason being, I've had no GCSEs, but yet I've built very, very big successful businesses. Everything that I've ever wanted in life, I've managed to get myself off my own back. Already my girls are quite successful, so my bug has started up heatless rollers as well, Curly. online, she sells them, she does little bits here and there. I'm very strict as a parent. They don't just get a yes mum 24/7. My will, there's stages in my will. So like, they're not allowed to inherit one house until they're married with a prenup.
And this is no diss to the mom, because she found a path where she dropped out of school and then she was successful. But it's also the fact that she made that choice. And I can understand, like, for example, for me as a parent, like, I went through high school, I went through college, but I also have my own business. And college was somewhat helpful in the sense of the network and the community, but it's not as if anything I learned in college directly is used my day to day. I still have no regrets going. It was an incredibly important experience for me. But it's something where if I have my kids, right, if they've started building something and they are so inclined that they need to do, like they need to maybe even drop out of high school late, right? I would really talk them through that decision, or they decide not to go to college, or they drop out of college. I would be very, supportive and open and welcoming to that idea, as long as they understood like what they were giving up. And it's not like college isn't even that much of an indicator of you're going to have a great career anymore. That's just not even really the case. It's more so something where it's the experience, it's the community, it's the social environment, right? And really kind of extra learning skills. So I can understand how this mom is like, this was very beneficial for me, but it's also something where part of me being open to my kids potentially dropping out is because I want them to, with guidance and support and the correct mentorship and understanding, and maybe I have to make a decision where they can't make an informed decision, is I want them to be able to follow their path. This is not these kids' paths. I'm not saying that it's not it's not necessarily their path. This might be their path, but also you don't know. It might also not be their path. These kids are too young to make this decision. And if they're in school and they're encouraged by their mom to continue to do their kind of business online or whatever, it's like, I don't even think these kids are old enough to comprehend what's going on. When I was 8 or 9, I couldn't make a decision like this. Even when I was like 15, maybe I could have made a decision, but even that would have been a bit dubious. Like, it really would, maybe like I would be open to that as a parent, but at 8 or 9, it's like, your kid is following your direction. This is not the choice of these kids. So for the mom dropping out when she was 14, that seems a little young, but she obviously went down a path that worked for her. But these kids are too young to make that decision. You should be encouraging and you should show them all the possibilities, right? You should show them what's possible. I'm all for showing these kids what is possible. What I have an issue with is almost forcing this decision for them. It just feels as if these kids are not making this decision, this choice, which is very unorthodox and also comes with so much risk. If you decide to drop out and do your own thing and you're successful, congratulations. I could have dropped out in college and done just fine, and I didn't, and I've done just fine in all cases. But I was also in a very unique situation with what I had going prior. You have to think about survivorship bias. Survivorship bias comes from, in World War II, a bunch of planes came back and they marked all the bullet holes on the planes. And they said, okay, all of these planes are coming back with bullet holes on the wings. We should add more armor to the wings. And then someone really smart made the observation, we actually should add more armor to where the bullet holes aren't. And someone's like, why would you do that? And they're like, it's because all the planes that were shot down that didn't make it back had bullet holes on the hull, because that is what took down the plane. The ones with bullet holes on the wings shows us that these planes can survive even with bullet holes on the wings. And survivorship bias is something that is so common for people to make this misconception. And here's another case, dropping out, I'm going to be Bill Gates. Look at the data on this. You're actually more likely to not be successful if you drop out, at least as of this time of recording. It's definitely changed quite a bit with the trades and internet careers, and there's a lot more. It's not as much of a risk dropping out, but it also is still you have a lot of negative paths you could go down. So you should only do it if it is really your choice and your destiny and your road. So if you're basically forcing these kids' hand and making the decision for them to go down a somewhat dubious path, especially if you don't have a clear direction there, I feel like this is just the worst parenting of all time.
For people that judge me on my parenting, I don't really care. So if they've got something to say, I just take it with a pinch of salt, and then it's just a matter of proving them wrong. So the girls do get a lot of comments that are not the best of comments. People, like full-grown adults, comment on their appearance, what they're gonna be like when they're older. They call them names. I don't let them see nothing. I put them in a bubble, and I would never let them get affected by it. But like grown women are commenting on children.